Well, how y'all doing from the great state of North Carolina? Of course, this is Jeff Cloud in the DVD Sobriety Part IV. It's good to see you again. If you're watching DVD Sobriety Part IV, you've probably seen the previous 3 of Sobriety, and it's good to be back with you here. Good to be back with you here. Just a quick overview of what we're going to do on DVD Part 4. Sobriety Part 4. I'm going to introduce you to me again, give you a little more information, introduce you to the group that I head, the charitable organization Crossroads Reentry Ministries. Then we're going to overview steps 1, 2, and 3. So basically today we're going to start the process of overviewing the 12 steps of a recovery program. We're going to hit first 3 steps, kind of an overview of those 3 steps. They kind of go together. Then we will have a session or a part, if you will, devoted, a DVD devoted to step 4, it's so critical, and then another one to step 5, it's so critical, and then we'll have a DVD that will be the steps 6 through 12, just to give you a general picture of what's out there for the rest of the steps. But my name, of course, is Jeff Cloud. I am the Executive Director of Crossroads Reentry Ministries. And of course, we exist for no other reason than to help people leave behind the incarceration lifestyle and of course the associated addiction, alcoholism, etc. that may go with it. But we are a charitable organization. I happen to be 20 plus years sober. Prior to that, I was 20 plus years a practicing alcoholic. Drugs were secondary to me. I tell people all the time, the only reason I wasn't an addict, I was just too tight financially. I never could see, for example, why spend $90 on a gram of cocaine when I could spend, back in my day, $2.67 on a 6-pack of red, white, and blue beer. And if I got 4 of those for the night, I was pretty well good to go. Case of beer for the night. Now that was about, say, $10, maybe 11 with tax, versus $90. I was too tight to be spending that money on that dope. So I'll never knock anybody that happened to be an addict. It's just that because of being tight financially, I didn't become one. But that paints a general picture. I've sponsored hundreds in sobriety. I have also taught for years and really worked for years, maybe even 2 decades now, in jails and prisons with recovery. So I think what you're going to glean is this guy knows how to get and stay sober by God's grace, of course. But that paints a general picture of me. Phone number to call when you get out for any God-honored need other than legal is 704-499-1332. Again, Jeff Cloud, Crossroads Reentry Ministries, 704-499-1332. Crossroads Reentry Ministries, here's our snail mail. We call it regular post office box mail. Post office box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28070. Again, post office box 861, Huntersville, North Carolina, 28070. 28070. Now, what I want to do is I want to move right into the first 3 steps of a recovery program. And the way to think about the steps of a recovery program is kind of like this. If we wanted to be millionaires, and let's say there was a group in the past that had decided, hey, we are millionaires and we want to help people become millionaires. So basically their whole purpose was to stay being millionaires and to help others become millionaires. Well, basically the purpose of AA or NA or another 12-step program is to get sober and help others to get sober. All right, that's basically the quote-unquote 2 purposes, if you will. Get sober and then help others to get sober, which really helps purpose number 1 as well too, the second one. Now, that being said, let's imagine there was a group of millionaires and they got together 7 decades ago, and they decided we're going to share principles that helped us become millionaires, and we are going to write a book, and we want everybody to suggest steps in this book for what could come true or what has come true in our lives the group that puts it together, and what would come true in anybody else's lives down the line that they practice these principles and they implemented these steps so that they could become millionaires. And of course, for millionaires, it'd be probably the big four, I call them. Financially, the big four, there would be avoid debt. You won't hear millionaires say, man, I just got into debt tremendously and that's how I became a millionaire. No, they won't say that. You won't find that with millionaires. What they realize is avoid debt. Let the interest work for them, not against them. Okay? That's one principle they'd say, avoid debt. Second thing is make sure you save a 3-month nest egg, because there's going to be something go haywire in your financial house. The transmission's going to go down, something unexpected, boom. If you got your 3-month nest egg, you're able to do that without bringing financial chaos up into the house. So after they get the 3-month nest egg, third thing that they're going to be doing is typically they're going to be tithing. If they go to a church or something, that means giving a tenth. Fourth thing they're going to be doing is giving. And now what's interesting is many times somebody early in the process of becoming a millionaire may not have much money, but they will give some of their time. And what they realize is God is the great giver. So when he sees his children be givers, he blesses them. Okay? When they try to be getters, he's going to be spanking them in life. So the point being, there would be the millionaires, and we would be wise if we want to be millionaires to listen to those folks. Now, there's a parallel, of course, to 12-step programs. The 12 steps were developed to show people a systematic way of how to get and stay sober, and it even goes beyond that, to live life in a great, successful, joy-filled life, if you will. All right, with no further ado, I want to break right into step number 1. Step number 1, we admitted we were powerless over blank. That could be alcohol, that could be heroin. I just got off the phone about 30 minutes ago with a guy who has been in the past battling heroin. He just got out of jail within the last 48 hours. And of course, him and I are starting the process of talking about where is he going to head from here. But that blank, whatever drug or alcohol of our choice has gotten us. For example, Alcoholics Anonymous, step 1 says, admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. So 2 keys there, powerless and unmanageable, basically in the first step. Me as an alcoholic, I was powerless over alcohol. It controlled me. Once I took the first drink, remember our definition we talked about in one of the earlier DVDs, I was off to the races. I was powerless to control my drinking. In other words, people who can control their drinking are what's known as social drinkers. They will drink maybe 1 drink, 1.5 drink, 1.5 beer, leave it down. The second one, they're at a social event. They drink 2 beers in 3 hours. They put it down, they walk away, it's no problem. It's not like that for an alcoholic. Once he takes the first drink, he's off to the races. Crack addict, once he takes the first $10 rock and he puts it in his stem and he smokes it, he's off to the races. Heroin addict, first fix, he's off to the races. So you get the picture. Whatever either that alcoholism or addiction is, basically we are powerless over it. The second thing is, you'll notice our lives have become unmanageable. What that basically means is this, is we as individuals were not able to be the best manager of our lives. What's the evidence, Mr. Cloud? Cloud, a couple dozen arrests, busted relationships, men-women relationships, business relationships, friendship relationships. You want to define a good relationship, it has to have trust and it has to have service. What that means is if I want to be a great dad to my children, they got to trust me. They got to know Dad's word means what it says it does. They got to know Dad will be there when he's supposed to be there. Service, I'm looking out for their needs. Now you start to get the picture of what a good dad will be. Same way in business. They can trust me, and I'm going to be meeting, if I got clients, I'm going to be meeting their needs, just like we do at Crossroads. What you need? Mr. Cloud, I need a job. Okay, boom. They can trust us to be there, and they can trust us for that help. All right, so, but managing our own lives had things like relationships totally in disarray. incarceration out the wazoo, and I know y'all like that around the nation. Wazoo is a North Carolina kind of saying that we say. It means a ton of it. But those two keys to the first step, powerless and unmanageable. We're going to take a little bit of a look at that. Most of us thought we could control our drinking or our drugging, okay? Most of us thought we could control our drinking or our drugging. Now, how might that have looked? Jeff Cloud, in his teens, was blacking out on liquor. So I tried to take the bull by the horn and control my alcoholism. Here's what I tried to do. If I don't drink liquor, I won't black out. All right? So I tried to drink just beer and wine, and for the most part I could, but every now and then, situation, whatever was going on, I'd hit that liquor. But what was interesting was I was blacking out on wine as well. Eventually I said, okay, well, I'll not drink liquor, I'll not drink wine, I'll just stick to beer. Blacking out on beer. If you catch this, I'm trying to control my disease by making changes, and I'm trying to do it myself. And it wasn't working. We try to control our drinking or our drugging in a million ways. Sometimes what we do with our money. I'll just give you an example. An addict may take the money and give it to grandma when he gets paid on Friday afternoon. He's been working hard that week, gets his paycheck, 60 hours a week. Let's make it that he made roughly $10 an hour, $600. Let's bring home pay. Let's make it $500. He brings home $500. Now, addict knows this. At $500 and his drug, it's going to be like gasoline and a lit match. It's going to be very volatile. Okay? So if he tries to control his addiction, he'll give that $500 to grandma. Hey, grandma, you just got paid today. Here's my $500 cash. I'm going to keep about 30 that I'll need, and you keep it. That'll be good savings. I may need some more on Monday or so to get stuff for work, buy my lunch, etc., so on and so forth. And of course, what happens is, Friday evening, first thing, he takes that $20 or $30 he's going to keep for the weekend. He goes, buys a couple of rocks of crack. He's off to the races, but what he realizes is, as he buys the next to last one, he's off to the races, so he goes back to grandma. Hey, grandma, give me that money. What does he do? He goes through it within about 24 hours, broke. But you see how he tried to control his disease by thinking, and of course that's thinking, that if I don't have the money, I won't use the drug, okay? The big book says it this way. It's kind of funny. I was just talking about this earlier today, that we can't control and beat our disease. Many people will try to do it by a geographical cure. In other words, if I just get out of this place. The big book says, for example, Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it basically says, if a man, an alcoholic, thought that he could get sober, and it was only by changing where he lived, he could go all the way to the coldest part of the North Pole, and there'd be an Eskimo show up there with a half gallon of liquor. In other words, the drugs and alcohol are everywhere on the earth. We got to learn a better way. We got to do a better way, namely to get and stay sober. And that's, of course, what these 12 steps are. But there's been a million ways we've controlled our drinking or drugging. Me, late my alcoholism, one of the things that I did was this. I knew I was a blackout drinker, and as my alcoholism went over the years, from about 11 years old till I got sober at 33, as the years creeped on by, make it 30 years old, 31 years old, my enjoyment window of my drug of choice alcohol got shorter. It was closing. And what I mean by that, we who are alcoholics or addicts, our enjoyment window gets closed till one day we get no enjoyment at all out of doing our drug, and basically the drug is doing us. Okay, basically whether it be alcohol or drugs, it is doing us. But I've tried to control it back then because I realized, let's make it when I was 29 years old. I'm still going to be drinking for 4 more years, but I realized, okay, now I drink about 2 to 3 hours max drinking beer, and then I go into blackout. Well, what did I try to do? I tried to control what time I would drink. On Saturday evening, I tried to only drink from 9 o'clock onward at night. What would that do? By midnight, your normal people had gone back home and gone to bed. But us who were alcoholics, we're still out there going. So my thought process was, people won't know I'm a blackout drinker when I'm out there with other blackout drinkers and other people who drink like I do. But I don't want to be out there on Saturday afternoon on the lake, start drinking at 1 o'clock, and by 4 o'clock I'm in a blackout. Because then everybody's going to see me, the normal people, and they'll be talking about me and blah, 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 blah. Tried to control it by what time I would drink. So the point being, we've done a million things to try to control our drinking. Now again, I want to go back and define what an alcoholic or addict is. Because if we're powerless over it, that basically means we're an alcoholic or an addict. It simply means once we've taken the first one, we're off to the races. And those of us who are alcoholics, addicts, know what that sentence means there. Once we've taken the first one, whether it be drink or drug, we're off to the races. Okay? Basic, simple definition of alcoholism or addiction. Now, we've used a gazillion reasons to justify our drinking or our drugging. Man, we're celebrating this party, or we're celebrating that birthday, or man, it was a tough day at work. It was a tough week at work. Let's drink them down. Let's drug them down, whatever the case may be. Let's drink them down. We've used a million reasons to justify our drinking. Hey, nobody has as much pain in their life as I do. Everybody's against me. And I got to have something to medicate, blah, 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 blah. All right? That's a million different reasons we've used to justify our drinking or our drugging. And really what it is thinking. Because, man, if somebody came up like me, Jack Cloud come up my hellhole, he got to have alcohol to deal with life. No, that's a million reasons to justify our drinking. Oh, it's legal. It's legal, so now I can drink and get drunk. Hey, if jumping off a cliff that was 2,000 feet was legal, down to the bottom, straight down, rocks at the bottom, there wouldn't be a whole lot of people jumping off. I can guarantee you that, no matter how legal it was. Why? They know they're going to get killed. And of course, alcoholism, drug addiction is the same type of thing. As a matter of fact, as I'm doing this DVD in 2014, some of the states have legalized marijuana. And I know that that will spread just like alcohol did. In other words, it's legal. Well, be careful. Many people use that to justify it. It's legal. There's a lot been done wrong in the legal arena, okay? A lot been done wrong in the legal arena. I find it kind of ironic. Just in yesterday's news, of course, last few months, many states have started doing legal marijuana, all right? But just yesterday, they came out with a major study that came out and showed how marijuana tears up a couple of major mental abilities, if you will. And their studies showed huge numbers proving that it does that, okay? Legal, but that way. Now, for Jeff Cloud, alcohol was legal, but he's an alcoholic. Destroying his life with alcohol, okay? But there's a million reasons we got to justify our drugging and our drinking. But the truth of the matter is, it's slow suicide. And there should be no reason to justify slow suicide. Sometimes it's fast suicide. Of course, you know, like me, we grew up, there were some people who drove drunk as young teenagers, and they died. So it may have been a quicker suicide for them. Now, I don't understand why them, not me. That's God's sovereignty. I leave that up to Him. He knows why He allowed that. All right. Now, with that being said, though, I do know the vast majority of people who become alcoholics or addicts die a slow suicide death. It's generally going to be over a few decades, but some of the ways that we die, if we continue down our drug of choice or our alcohol of choice, are very, very much described as suicide. But there's a million ways we try to justify or our drinking or our drugging. Now, another key to the first step, be careful not to compare ourselves to others. What do you mean by that, Mr. Cloud? Me, as a practicing alcoholic, I knew I was an alcoholic, and I would basically in my mind say this. Even though I was passing out, peeing all over myself regularly on my sofa, blackouts, etc., I define an alcoholic, yeah, he goes through all of that, but he lives under a bridge in a box. And if you catch that, the enemy was putting a little definition on it that made the alcoholic just a little bit below me. Therefore, I wasn't an alcoholic because I didn't fall down into that bottom line of alcoholism. He'll do it a million ways. He twists the definition. But if you just remember that simple definition, alcoholic or addict, once they take the first one, they're off to the races. Boom. Whoop, there it is. Okay, whoop, there it is. That's the definition. Now, with that being the case, if we keep that simple definition and not what the enemy tells us in our thoughts, then we can realize and admit we are an alcoholic or an addict. And of course, that's the first step, that our lives have become unmanageable. We're not able to manage the lives the best that they can be managed according to our own managing it. Okay? The big book says several times in chapter 3, how do we get a defense against our disease? It basically says this several times again in chapter 3. Our defense must be spiritual in nature. Okay? Now, with that being said, I want to turn the page and we will look at the second step. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I always find that step very interesting, especially the last part here. Could restore us to sanity. That means that at one point in our lives, we lived sanely. I became an alcoholic at 10 or 11 years old. When was I sane? Alcoholism is not sane because that's slow suicide, like I said previously in step 1. But when was I sane? As a little bitty child. What a little bitty child, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 say? I see the results of alcohol and it's bad. I ain't gonna do it. Now that's sanity. I see it kills people. I see it makes them chaotic, makes them beat people, makes them do things that they don't even remember the next day. All those are bad. And I see that's a bad thing. I'm gonna stay away from it. I was saying it one time. But when I started alcohol, this stuff's bad and I'm gonna do it. That's insanity. Now, second step can be a tough one. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. The power greater than ourselves. The power greater than ourselves, generally, I've found in the 12-step program I go to, most people have that power being one of two. And here's what I mean. It's either God or, like me, for example, for a month or so in my sobriety. The power greater than myself was the group. And here's what I mean by that. Being the group, the power greater than myself was realizing me trusting my own thinking got me into full-blown alcoholism and a rock bottom spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. All right? That was my best. Okay? Here's a group of people who have gotten and are staying sober. If I start listening to them and doing what they say, I should be getting and staying sober. Now, if you catch that, now instead of trusting me as the power of my life, I make all the shot calls. I've said, okay, boom, I'm going to trust the group. They started saying things like this: go to 90 meetings in 90 days, get a sponsor, work the steps. All of these type things were repeated many times, multiple times at just about every meeting. Okay? So I knew the group, looking back upon it, was my higher power. That was step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. I know I didn't want to go through the continued insanity of doing alcoholism. And of course, insanity, I think vast majority of us in sobriety have heard over and over again. Insanity is defined as doing the same things over and over and over again, expecting different results. Do the same things over and over and over again, same way, expecting different results. That's insanity. Okay? If something doesn't change, nothing's going to change. All right? Now, the choice, many times though, the other part of that power greater than ourselves is God. Now, here's what starts to happen with people as they start hearing that. Wow, we got a choice, either due to an alcoholic addict death, because we know if we keep going down this path, there ain't nothing but death ahead of us. As a matter of fact, it always stinks like death in the spiritual. Most of us are spiritually dead while we're out there, alcoholism addiction, so to speak. Now, we're sitting there thinking, if I go on this way, drinking/drugging, death. But that other alternative they're talking about, to walk a path that God wants us, man, that's got to be the boringest, dullest, glummest life there is. In reality, what we're doing there is we're practicing prejudice. And I'm not talking about racial prejudice there. I'm talking about judging a path that we have not walked. We're judging it to be bad and we haven't walked it yet. That's prejudice. We've prejudged, if you will. We've made a decision, it's got to be bad, and we hadn't even walked down that path. And just like racial prejudice is wrong, prejudging paths is wrong. Life paths. Now, that's not an easy choice, because the enemy's going to be telling us, oh man, you'll never have any fun, you're going to be white-knuckling it, it's going to be real tough, there's going to be things you got to change. Here's the good news. In all reality, we can't change ourselves. We have to partner with God to get changed. Just to be honest with you. You catch that. It's kind of like if you can think of us being in a bobsled in the Olympics. We got God in that front seat, and we're going to be jumping in the back seat. And when we do that and do what we're supposed to be doing, everything's going to go well. We're with Him. We're going with Him. And that is a good picture. But that choice to believe in a power greater than ourselves is a very tough one. What's going on basically is we're having to let go of pride and we're having to get humble. We're letting go of pride and we're having to grab a hold of humility. Pride sticks a hand in God's face and says, I'll run the show. Doesn't have to say it with words, it's doing it with actions and thoughts. Pride sticks a hand in other people's face. Hey, I'm the shot caller here. You people ain't going to tell me what to do. And hey, I don't need any help. I don't ever have to even talk about it. If I got a problem, I'll take care of it myself. That's what pride does. And God's got a seesaw course that says pride will always lead to a crash. That's His seesaw. One side goes down. Pride will always lead to a crash. But humility, the other side, always lifts one up. What does humility do? It says, God, I've got to have your help. And I got to have your help as it comes through people. And if you catch that, then living on a spiritual basis says, okay, God, I've screwed it up. I got to have your help. And by the way, I will accept that help as it comes through people. And there's going to be a lot of stuff we hear, because you got to remember, these old alcoholic addict lives, we're very spiritually sick. Now, very spiritually sick people take a long time to get spiritually healed and headed towards that direction. It's not generally an overnight matter. Okay? It's not generally an overnight matter. And what that means is, even if we get saved, there's still going to be that old sin nature. There's still going to be hanging around. And just like it takes great basketball players, Michael Jordan, or great swimmers, Michael Phelps, whatever athletes you may think of in the professional realm, they didn't get there by not practicing. They practiced tons. And it's the same way in our spiritual life as well as we walk with God. It takes a lot of practice. And we keep practicing. We'll keep getting better with that spiritual life. The spiritual life and life in general will keep getting better. It's like them old timers say. Keep coming back. It keeps getting better. Now, what is step two's essence? Basically, a lack of power, that was our dilemma. A lack of power, that was our dilemma. Remember, we, in step one, were powerless over alcohol or drugs. We can't beat this thing, alcoholism or drug addiction, by ourselves. We lacked power. Where do we get that power? How do we find that power? That's what step two is about. we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Came to believe faith. Faith is simply taking someone or something at their word. Okay, boom. Faith in the 12 steps says those people who put them 12 steps together, they knew how to get and stay sober. The millions of people who've worked those 12 steps and stayed sober, faith says, okay, I'm going to step out and I'm going to work those 12 steps and I'm going to get sober and get a sober, good, successful life, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically. All right? Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves would restore us to sanity. Maybe the group saying just step 2. Now step 3 will move to God, because that's what step 3 is about. But step 2 could be either the group itself or God. But the lack of power, that was our dilemma. How can we find that power? You know, with the God thing, here's what's amazing with the God thing. I'll never forget, here in Mecklenburg County, Charlotte area, North Carolina, I was teaching years ago in a substance abuse pod in the Mecklenburg County Jail. And I was teaching step 2, and part of what went on was step 2 says this: we don't have to depend on another's concept of God. We can have our own. And so I challenged the guys one week as I finished step 2, knowing I was going to be teaching on step 3 the following week. And I said, guys, I want you to get a real physical world example of a spiritual truth of how you can understand God. And of course I said, I'll be coming in next week and I'll see for a show of hands. I'll pick somebody, just hear some of them, because your understanding of God might be different than my understanding of God. And that was different understanding of God, blah, 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 whatever the case is. So I come back in the following week. Anybody got anything? One man raised his hand. Yes, sir, what you got? He said, Mr. Cloud, we're up here on the 5th floor. I look out. I can see the building corners. I've got the high view. I can see these people coming this way, these people coming this way. I can see what's around the corner. They can't see around the corner because they're down low. But because of my high position, I can see around their corners. And that's like God. He's got the high position. We got the low position. He can see what's around our corners. And many times he may stop us from something because he knows there's something going on around that corner. Let's say around the corner on the street, somebody's coming by and they got an Uzi and they're looking like they're going to shoot everybody. All right? Now, guess what? If Superman was up there on the 5th floor on top of the jail and he saw that, he would fly down, he would, bam, swoop up one person who was coming around the corner and take them off, and they would be saved. They wouldn't get shot by the dude with the Uzi. Now, to the person who got hit by Superman, they're going to think, what in the world is going on? Bam! And it hurts at first. Then he tells them later, here's why I had to hit you so hard when I caught you real quickly to get you to safety. And that may be what God does sometimes. It seems to be bad to us. The man on the street, when he got swooped up by Superman, seemed bad at first. But that was a brilliant way of understanding God. So we set the stage. God as we understand Him. God as we understand Him. I want to share this with you. We all worship some being, someone, something. I'm going to say that again. We all worship some being, someone, or something. You can look into anybody's life. I can if we know enough about them. And we can see what their gods are. Some people, downtown Charlotte, one of the major banking capitals of the world, there's some men down there that'll work 90, 100 hours a week in banking. And their God is power and money and those kind of things. They worship it. They spend all their time focused on it. They're consumed by it. Jeff Cloud, before he got sober, he had 2 major gods. Alcohol, getting drunk, that was 1, and 2, women. He was a womanizer. Those were his gods. He spent time focusing on them. So we're already worshipers, guaranteed. It's ingrained in us. The sad part is most of the people in the world worship the wrong thing, okay? And what we want to do with step 2 is set that stage to give God the great worth, to give another power greater than ourselves the great worth. Worship. Okay? That's what worship is. Now, that was step 1 we talked about. Admitting we were powerless over alcohol or drugs and our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. But step 3 is made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Okay? There is the God word. So if a person isn't ready for God yet, they could have done step 1. They may be working on step 2, but they haven't got to step 3. Okay? If they haven't cut what I call the God switch on. And that's how I describe this. Our lives are either a self switch or God switch. It's on or off. Kind of like your regular light switches. Regular light switches, I'm not talking about dimmers, I'm talking about the regular light switches. When we go into a room, it's either on or off. You can't sit there and cut it halfway and have it half dimmed with a regular light switch. It's either on or off. And that's basically what our lives are. They're either going to be run by God or by what self says. No in between. And what happens with step 3? We switch it on to God. We've had that switch off, the God switch. Now we switch it on to God. And that's basically what making a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. Here's another way to call it. Back in the younger days, here in the Carolinas, I run with probably the leader of the Carolinas Mafia, okay? And it's kind of interesting. I'll never forget my granddad. I was 18, 19 years old, maybe 20. And I'd only hung with this guy at that time, the Mafia guy, 6 times. But I had gotten arrested 3. Now think about it. You go hang with somebody only 6 times and you're arrested 3. I came in one day, my granddad sat there and he was flipping a coin. Flipping a coin. What in the world's he flipping a coin about? Son, flipped it up in there, let it hit the floor. I think I would hang with someone else whom there was less of a chance of going to jail, get arrested, than the flip of a coin. Flip a coin is 50 cents, 50%. You've been 3 out of 6 times getting arrested, okay? Now, I got arrested 3 out of 6 times. You see, Jeff Cloud was running the show. He didn't give a rip about God. He was running it on self. I'll go out there and party. This guy's got plenty of drugs. Women are coming, blah, 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 making decisions based upon self. But sooner or later, we got to realize any life run on self-will can hardly be a success. Let me say that again. Any life run with the God switch off, self-switch full on, can't really be described as a success. Well, Mr. Cloud, the band down at the bank, they make $1 million, each one of them working 90 hours a week. They're working 90 hours a week. They make $1 million a week. If you went and looked at their wife and their marriage, and you could get into her head, here's what you'd say. This man thinks a job is more important than me. He thinks money is more important than me. If it wasn't for my children, I'd get out of this marriage. That's not a happy marriage. His children, let's make them 12, 13, 14 years old. They're sitting there thinking, he poured all this time into a job. He's treated us in life like a job's more important than we are. Whoa. Did you catch that? Somebody doing that ain't no way successful. I don't care how much money they get. Their marriage is terrible, and more than likely their children are going to be sitting there going to drugs and alcohol or some sort of squirrely lifestyle because of dad not spending time with them. Now, you see, the self switch can be on in a million different ways. It doesn't have to be just alcoholism, drug addiction. But for us who've been alcoholics or addicts, we've definitely had the self switch wide open, full on, and we've had the God switch off. So when we come in, that's what we basically do. Flip them the other way. Self switch off. I ain't listening to self tell me what to do or run the show or call shot callers. And that's what I was talking about, that mafia man earlier in that little story I told you that I ran with here. We called him the shot caller. And that's what mafia people do. Shot caller, main one, like over the Carolinas. He called a shot, things would happen. You know what I'm talking about. He'd call a shot, things would happen. We try to be shot callers of our own lives. We say what's going to happen. Da, da, da. And what happens is, instead of us being the shot callers, look where our lives have gotten us with us being the shot callers. Let's let God be the shot caller. Because when He's the shot caller, life goes great. Now here's what I mean by goes great. Doesn't mean we're not going to face troubles, but what will happen is, if we hang in there for a while, give God time, we will see that even our troubles are good for us. You say, how does that work, Mr. Cloud? Well, God wants me to practice kindness and love, etc. I can't practice that right like God wants me to if everybody does exactly what I want. It's easy to love them then. That's not true love. Love like He does is we who are unworthy of us, which is all of us, and He still loves us with all our baggage. Now that's the kind of love He wants me to love. So when the man calls, and I've gotten calls from guys who were angry as alligators. Many times. You don't get hundreds of calls from people out of jail or prison. Angry as alligators. And I'm sitting there thinking, you're talking angrily to probably the only man on the planet right now that can help you. That's what I'm thinking. And sometimes if I don't watch it, he's angry, blah, blah, I get up and my voice raises up. And God's working in that way with me. So I have to say thank you when God sends somebody who's a little abrasive, because what does it give me a chance to do? Practice true love. And I need to practice to get better. Now you see how things can look bad and they're actually good for us, if you catch what I'm getting at. All right. Here's another great example that I'll share with you of the way that we can understand God. God the director, we're the actors. God the director, we're the actors. I grew up in a little county, Anson, that's about 50 miles east of the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Now, that little county, Anson, had the color purple. 2/3 of all that you'll see in the movie The Color Purple was filmed in Anson County. The farm scenes, all of the rural type scenes, all that kind of stuff. 2/3 of what you see on the screen in The Color Purple. One of the greatest movies of all time when adjusted for inflation. Definitely probably one of the top 5 or 10 movies of all time. Of course, Color Purple was directed by Steven Spielberg. Yeah, you've heard of Spielberg. E.T., many other movies. As a matter of fact, if they did the top 10 movies of all time sales adjusted for inflation, I imagine Spielberg would have at bare minimum 2. He might have max 5, somewhere between 2 and 5 of the top 10. Hands down, must be the greatest director of all time. Now, back in The Color Purple, they had some names you're probably familiar with. Oprah Winfrey, Danny Glover. There was another great actress as well. Her name slips me right now, but the point being, 3 great actresses types and the greatest director. And they came up with a great movie, no doubt about it. Now, here's what would go on in that movie many people didn't know. The director would say, okay, Oprah, Danny Glover, and of course Whoopi Goldberg. Those were the 3 I was thinking about. Whoopi was the one I couldn't get just a minute ago. But those 3, he would tell them, let's just start with Oprah. He's going to tell Oprah. Oprah's going to tell the other 2, here's what they're going to do. He would say, Oprah, we're going to film scene 7 today. You're in Anson County. Do scene 7. Then they would move. Okay, we finished up scene 7. Let's do scene 2. All right, we do scene 2 in Anson County. We do scene 16 in Anson County. Okay, do scene 16. Now what was going on was Steven Spielberg, the director, knew where the whole movie was going. The actors, when they did, and actresses, when they did their part, even when they got through that, those scenes had kind of been scattered until the very end when the movie was put all together and they go see what's called the premiere for the actors, actresses, producers, etc. The main people who are going to finance this movie, etc. They get first crack at seeing that movie, the finished product. Then Oprah knew what was going on. Now, Oprah exercised faith in the director and what he said. What I mean by that is, Spielberg said, let's do scene 2, then let's do scene 17, whatever it was, scene 7, and they're kind of seeming discombobulated. Then once they finished all the shots in Anson County, they moved to Charleston to do a scene or 2 down there, Charleston, South Carolina. And you start to see there's some order to it with what the director was doing. But let's just imagine, here's what the director was trying to do. Let's shoot all our scenes in Anson County, then let's move all of our equipment, everything, 3 hours away drive time down into Charleston. Then they might go down to New Orleans. There was a scene or 2 down there, I believe. And then, of course, the St. Louis area. And then they did a lot of scenes out in California. And if you catch all that, there was a systematic way of moving so that you weren't hop-skipping around the country. But here's what most people would think. We need to do scene 1 first, scene 2 first, second, scene 3 third, blah, 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 blah. And that's how we're going to film it. No, 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 no. Because if they did that, scene 1, Hollywood, California. Scene 2, Anson County, North Carolina. Scene 3, St. Louis, Missouri. Scene 4, New Orleans. You're starting to get the picture. You see how costly that would be to move all that equipment, all those people back and forth like that? Whew. They'd have run totally out of budget and the film would have been a bust financially, okay? But what would have happened would have been this. Oprah would have said, let's imagine that she said to Steven Spielberg, when Spielberg's saying, let's do scene 7 first in Anson County. And she said, whoa, Spielberg, no, 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 no. I'm the shot caller. And she's an actress. He's the director. And she said, we're going to do scenes 1, 2, 3, 4, and do these things in order because that's the way numbers are. We do them in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you catch that, what's basically going on is the actor, is saying to the director, I'll tell you how this thing should go. And that's a picture of our lives. God, I don't care what you say. Getting drunk's a bad thing. I don't care what you say. Doing dope's a bad thing. I'll do what I want to. And then we wonder why the movie's all screwed up and the budget's busted. You see, he is the director. And he has perfect knowledge because God is outside of time. Here's what I mean. He's in time, but he's also outside of time. Here's what I mean by being outside of time. He knows the future. Now we are in time. We are right in the present. We may can think about the future. We may can say some things about the future. We may can talk about the past. But we're right here in the present. He lives in the past, the present, the future. He sees it all. So he's like that director. He knows where the end product's going, the movie of our lives, if you will. So it's going to be wise to listen to and do what the director says. Now that's just one example of how we can do to get an example of God and an understanding of God. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. God the boss, we're a worker. What does a good boss do? He tells us what to do. He helps us get clarity when we don't fully understand exactly what we're supposed to do. God the same way if we're His worker. Tells us what to do. Why? He knows the big picture. That's why He's the boss. Now I know human bosses aren't perfect, but God is perfect. He's the perfect boss. So we need to be a worker under Him. There's a million ways we can understand God. A million gazillion ways, if you will, that are out there of how we can understand God. God, Creator God. He's the one that created all that we see, okay? If He wants me to be like Him, then I need to be creating some things or else I'm not going to find fulfillment. Jeff Cloud, Crossroads Reentry Ministries, creating DVDs to help people. It's very fulfilling to know that these DVDs, I have no clue how many they will go out to in their entirety or even how long they'll be played. But I do know one thing, they're going to help a ton of people. And it's been fun to get creative in how is each DVD going to be, how is the whole picture going to be together. And see, I understand God is Creator God. Therefore, if I'm made in His image, if I'm to be godly, there's going to be a creative component that if I don't express, I'll miss out in life. A million ways to understand God. But as a quick review, We talked about me and Crossroads Reentry Ministries. We talked about step one. Admitted we were powerless over blank, either alcohol or drugs, and our lives had become unmanageable. Step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And step three, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. I've heard 7 words that can sum up the first 3 steps, and here they are. Step one, I can't. I can't what? Beat my disease? I can't manage my life to the best it can be managed. Step one, I can't. Step two, He can. He can what? He can beat my disease. He can manage my life to the best it can be managed. So you had step one, 2 words, I can't. Step two, 2 words, He can. Step three, 3 words, I'll let Him. I'll let Him what? I'll let Him manage my life. I'll let Him beat my disease. All right. There you have it, an overview of the first 3 steps. And now, as I like to end these DVDs, we've been blessed. Let's go be a blessing.